Alright, in this video we're going to check out Pattern 16. Kind of similar in concept to some of the things we talked about with Pattern 15. It's a 45-degree angle, square repeating pattern. This one's kind of interesting to look at because you can see how it's inverted. So this guy is the inverse of that one. Probably a couple ways to do this one. I think if you were to break it down into like simple shapes, like if you understand how just the basic square works, you could kind of scale, start with a larger square, duplicate it, transform it to make a smaller square, then subtract that one from the larger one, and then scale that square down and add another one into that. So like with a series of like smaller and smaller squares blending together, you could probably end up with something really close to this. But I think what I'm going to do instead, because that's the obvious way, let's get a little creative and try doing it with less work. We're going to use, I think, stripes and probably the shape mapper. So I'm going to come in here to a new graph. We're going to do stripes. And if you look at the reference on this guy, there's primarily going to be two white and two black sections. So we have way too much. Let's shift it down so it's flat. And let's do 2. All right, now notice how they're kind of offset right now. I'm gonna have to fix that, but for now though, let's just kind of like get the transform set up, because I'm gonna need this to fix this little issue where the black is kind of overlapping on the top and the bottom. And I need to immediately put this into a shape mapper. I used this on one of the way earlier patterns, I think in the beginner video series. So if any of you guys have seen that one, you probably saw me do this with that really crazy looking circular ring effect. It's kind of similar to that, but I don't want it to make a circle. I'm trying to have this turn to like a square. But the cool thing about the shape mapper is you can pick to do a circle or a polygon, and then I can say, all right, so how many do I need? Let's kind of change this to not 8 segments. Let's do 4. And let's bring in the radius. Take that all the way down. Actually not that far off. I think I may have got lucky and this kind of worked. Let me just double check this. Oh yes, so see how that much thicker this is in the middle compared to that white one? So I do need this transform. So I'm going to click on this so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm basically just moving it vertically. I'm holding shift and moving it up and down. But when I do that, if you watch the shape mapper, look what it's doing. I don't want to go too far because then that white will start repeating. But zoom in a lot here, right about, almost got it. Just want to get it barely black. There. Okay, got it. So that basically just lined it up. So the black, or that white lined up right on the bottom. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to have an inverted version of this thing. So let's try inverting this guy and see if we can get that to work. So if I do a tile generator, oh, this is also turned, by the way. That's something we're gonna have to fix. Totally forgot about that. Let's rotate this and try to get that working. And I think I'm gonna have to scale this out too. Let's see, let's bring that out to a max width. There we go. That's a better starting point. So I just went back to the shape mapper and scaled the width up. So essentially that thing just encompasses the entire sort of 0 to 1 space. So that right there is one of the sections. Now what we want to do is tile it. So let's see here. We've got 4 here and they're rotated. So we've had to do this before. Let's try to tile it first. Now I could do a tile generator, and I know I've been using that a lot. You don't always have to use a tile generator if you're doing something really simple with like super basic shapes. Like I know this is going to tile pretty easily. I mean, it tiles naturally anyway. So what I'm going to do instead, just to maybe make this a little more efficient, because the tile generator is kind of beefy, let's put it in the transform and then cut that width down in half. And I'm just going to offset it so it's not in the center. So this needs to be, let's see, 0.5 and 0.5. And again, the reason I'm kind of doing this over the tile generator, it's not that it's right or wrong. The tile generator has a lot of other functions inside of it, so it tends to be a slower node. This one's really quick. So for something as basic as making that tile into a 2x2, I don't need to go into something as extreme as a tile generator. Okay, now I have this. Now the thing I'm kind of messing up right now is, remember, the other two guys here are the inverted version. Now what I'm kind of seeing when I look at this is this almost reminds me of a sort of a chessboard or checkerboard, where I kind of have these opposite tiles here that need to be a different color. So what we could do is make a checker pattern, and I'm going to turn this to a 1x1. So black, white, black, white. Now from here, what we're going to do is try to invert this thing. So I'm going to take an invert grayscale. We're going to move this up here. Let's connect this into the invert grayscale. So here's my inverted version of that same pattern. Here's one, here's the opposite. Now what I can do now is I can blend them together. So let's take this guy, we'll try that in the foreground, that in the background. I don't necessarily know if this is the right order. We're going to find out. Now, when it's set to a copy, it means the foreground is going to layer over the background, which is probably fine. But I need to use this to tell it which one of those guys layers over the background. You can kind of already see probably where we're going with this. But if I connect this into the opacity, see what happened? Now, I don't know if I have it mixed up. I might. We'll kind of know when we rotate it and we see what happens. Now let's try flipping this guy 45 degrees. And I'm going to do the safe transform grayscale, which I've used a few different times. Okay, we're going to do 45 degrees on that. Oh, I got lucky, and that is the right order. So what could have happened is if I had this in the wrong order, just to kind of show you, you'll see how like I flipped the foreground and background. And if I was trying to get really close to the reference, you can see how it kind of has these two guys flipped. That was just me changing the layer order. And there we go. So not too bad. That's how we do pattern 16.